In Paraguay, popular organizations are advancing in the national mobilization heading to Asunción to demand that the government stop the displacement, the indictment, and the immediate release of all social and political prisoners. World Health Organization warned on Friday about wealthy nations hoarding COVID-19 vaccines as the new Omicron variant spread worldwide. Hamas today honored in Gaza the 34th anniversary of its foundation, which took place in 1987 with the start of the first Intifada. Hello, welcome to From the South, from the headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Ana Marrero. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Paraguay, popular organizations are advancing to the national mobilization heading to Asunción to demand the government stop the displacement, the indictment, and the immediate release of all social and political prisoners. The protesters announced that after the approval of the Law 6830 or the La Zavala law, the attacks on peasant communities increased with the persecution of activists, agricultural workers, and union leaders. The protesters declared that with the government's indifference, the expansion of agribusiness has illegally occupied some 3.5 million hectares, affecting the environment and the expulsion of the indigenous community. The peasants, after declaring themselves in permanent strike, pointed out that the measures taken by the opposition senators are insufficient in view of the severity of the situation. They call on the Paraguayan people to join the protest and resist against the criminalization of the social struggle. In Argentina, citizens gathered in Plaza de Mayo Square in Buenos Aires to participate in the celebration of Democracy and Human Rights Day. It is estimated that more than 200,000 people gathered in Plaza de Mayo as part as tributes following the end of the military dictatorship in 1983. Several heads of states and government officials attended the ceremony, which also coincided with the celebration of 2 years of government of President Alberto Fernandez and Vice President Cristina Fernandez. In Bolivia, opposition leader Marco Pumari, arrested from burning down the Department Electoral Tribunal in 2019. Police forces also raided offices to Potosinistas Civic Committee in compliance with a court order and arrest warrants against the current president of the institution, Juan Carlos Manuel Hualpa. Among the causes for which Pumari has arrested, the burning of the public property stands out. Previously, in October 2019, violent groups attacked and burned the facilities of the Departmental Electoral Tribunal in Potosí. These acts were triggered by the civic committees that promoted the coup d'etat against the government of Evo Morales. Colombia on Monday, a toys protest to highlight child abuse was staged by the Colombian branch of SOS Children's Villages, an international NGO. Hundreds of toys were laid out in Bogotá's iconic Bolivar Square to protest against violence over children and demand more funding to help kids who grow up without their parents. Angela Rosales, the director of the international NGO in Colombia, said that toys represented the voice of children who need help. Demands were also addressed to Colombian government to boost spending on programs that help children facing domestic violence and do justice against child abuse.
Unfortunately, violence against children has no gender or age distinction. Although girls are more vulnerable than boys, especially in the situation of sexual abuse, it can occur from the time they are babies to any age. So we are talking about the constant violation of children's rights that happens in the environments that are called to be the most protective, and that occurs in a context where the state does not respond adequately to this situation.
National Electronic Music Festival returns to Cuba this December for its fifth edition, bringing together artists from Latin America and Europe. We have more details with our correspondent, Lisandra Andres.
Festival returns to the Cuban culture scene this December. More than 17 artist projects from Mexico, Spain, and the United Kingdom and Cuba will participate from December the 9th to December the 12th in the fifth edition of the event, which will be held in an online format.
Social media gives you the chance to reach a wider audience, and that is the good experience that the pandemic has brought us, which has allowed us to open up a little more on the path to reach a significant audience, even international.
As explained by its organizers, since its creation, the AEF encourages the artists who participate to investigate and deepen their knowledge of the rhythm roots of the Cuban music, a proposal that seeks to make the festival an international reference for electronic fusion where young creators of this genre in Cuba can showcase their work.
The festival has, of course, its primary objective, which is to explore the roots, to recover a little bit of the rhythms of Cuban music that are inevitably falling into oblivion. But when you combine them with electronic music, you bring them closer to new generations, and therefore you give a second life to those rhythms.
This year's edition presents a lineup with a renewed representative of the Cuban music, and also gives visibility to women in the electronic music genre. Musical performances and workshops with important artists will merge as part of this gathering.
We are creating more and more. We're reinventing ourselves. We have merged with dance, with musicians, with other artists, with DJs. Many artistic expressions have been introduced within the festival. And that is the idea. Everything is about Cuba, from the roots to the most contemporary.
For 5 years, AEF has been working to place Cuba in the world circuit of electronic music and to bring the younger generations closer to the cultural roots of the country, with its distinctive seal of fusion between different rhythms. A festival, as its organizers assure, created in Cuba and designed for the world.
Lisandra Andrés, teleSUR, La Habana, Cuba.
After this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The World Health Organization warned against renewed hoarding of vaccines by wealthy countries as the new Omicron coronavirus variant spreads across the globe. Although the numbers of doses being delivered to lower-income countries through the COVAX vaccine sharing program has increased in recent months, there is a good chance that richer countries will return to reducing the supply of jabs to ramp up their own booster program. According to the Vaccine Alliance Gavi, COVAX has shipped more than 600 million doses of vaccines to more than 100 countries or territories since February. A key problem from COVAX has been wealthy countries donating COVID-19 vaccines with a relatively short shelf life, while noting that wastage rate were also high in some wealthy countries. On Friday, UK officials said the country faced a deeply concerning situation as Omicron coronavirus variant continues to spread at high rate. UK Community Secretary Michael Gove expressed, we have the highest number of COVID infections across UK recorded today since the 9th of January. He added, Omicron variant was doubling every 2 or 3 days in England and possibly even faster in Scotland. 30% of coronavirus cases in London were from Omicron, despite it was identified in the UK only 2 weeks ago. Gov also stated there is evidence that Omicron was causing more hospital admissions among the fully vaccinated compared with previous variants.
A deeply concerning situation. The COBRA meeting that I just chaired with the First Ministers of all the devolved administrations was presented with some very challenging new information. We know that we have the highest number of COVID infections across the United Kingdom recorded today since the 9th of January. We know that the Omicron variant is doubling every 2 to 3 days in England and possibly even faster in Scotland. We know that 30% of reported cases in London are the Omicron variant. And of course, we only identified the Omicron variant in this country a fortnight ago. So we absolutely do need to keep everything under review. I think the approach that we're taking is proportionate. We recognize the importance of balancing people's ability to get on with their lives with the need to protect them against this virus. But action is absolutely required. And as new data comes in, we will consider what action we do require to take in the face of that data.
Bolivia began vaccinations against COVID-19 from 5 years of age onwards, at a time when the country is already facing the so-called fourth wave of the pandemic. From the city of La Paz, our correspondent Fred Morales with the details.
The announcement of including children between 5 and 11 years old to the mass vaccination campaign was made by President Luis Arce. Our specialists from the Health Ministry have worked intensively in recent weeks to gather information, evaluate studies, and international reports, and it was decided that Sinopharm vaccine, used for children in different countries, will be used for this age group. Children began to arrive at the vaccination centers. Children do not want to stay locked up in the house. They want to go out, so parents say, so maybe they get COVID-19, and that's why they, the children, say, we should get vaccinated. Moms are confident that this protection will allow children to begin to normalize their activities.
This morning we heard the news that they had already extended the age, and we've celebrated, the three of us and she even more, because we were waiting for her vaccine. The vast majority of us do the same for our children because we love them and we do not want anything bad to happen to them. I feel safer like this. They want to go out. So let's get all the children vaccinated so there will be more safety.
Although there is hope that the vaccination will allow the return to face-to-face classes as of February of next year, the health minister does not encourage such expectations. This morning I saw children at the National Health School lining up with their uniforms and their expressions saying, I want to go back to school. I want to see my friends again. To hear that is beautiful. We are not saying that vaccination will allow us to go back to school, but it is an important step. The incorporation of the new age group from 5 to 11 years old, which exceeds 1.6 million people, increases the vaccine-eligible population to more than 10 million. The country has more than 11 million inhabitants, and for the last 2 weeks has been facing the so-called fourth wave, with a constant increase in the number of new infections per day. On Wednesday, the number of infections exceeded 1,700.
Freddy Morales, teleSUR, Bolivia.
In Brazil, heavy rains flooded nearly 130 localities and caused the evacuation of more than 2,000 people in the northeastern part of the country. The extratropical cyclone produced heavy rains of up to 500 millimeters in the south of Bahia region. At least 500 families, corresponding to almost 25% of the region's inhabitants, are still evacuating from their homes. Some 30 cities are in an emergency condition. Thousands of homes and businesses were also affected by the landslide. We have more news coming up after this final short break, so stay with us.
¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life, Fridays, only on teleSUR.
What's his name?
Welcome back. Hamas today honored in Gaza the 34th anniversary of its foundation, which took place in 1987 with the start of the Fair Antifada. Local sources reported that due to the serious economic crisis following the fighting last May, which caused considerable damage, the central demonstration in the main square of Gaza, where in the past more than 100,000 people gathered, has now been cancelled. This year, Hamas instead asked supporters to organize marches after Friday praise in mosques. According to sources, this procession took place in all the main locations of the trip, and all they were attended by tens of thousands of people waving the green banners of the resistance movement. On Friday, the High Court of Justice in London approved the extraditing the Australian journalist Julian Assange to the United States. As soon as the decision was known, Reporters Without Borders expressed its rejection for the possibility of extradition, saying it will bring dangerous consequences for the future of press freedom in the world. Two appeal judges accepted U.S. assurance that the Wikileaks founder will not face restricted measures before any trial or after conviction. The London Court of Appeal returned the case of Assange's extradition to the U.S. to a lower court in Westminster, while the Wikileaks founder remains incarcerated. However, Assange's defense still has the right to challenge the verdict by filing an appeal. If extradited, tried, and convicted, he could be jailed for up to 175 years, although the exact sentence is difficult to estimate.
Yet the High Court decided against Julian on this occasion on the basis of political assurances, non-assurances that the U.S. has given to the U.K. government. I say non-assurances. Amnesty International says non-assurances. Amnesty International has analyzed these assurances and have said that they are inherently unreliable. He has been detained since the 7th of December 2010 in one form or another, 11 years. For how long can this go on? Today is International Human Rights Day. What a shame. How cynical to have this decision on this day.
Russian President Vladimir Putin stated that the events in Donbass look like genocide. The Russian head of state referred that the operation carried out by Ukraine since 2014 in the region where the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics were proclaimed.
I have to say that Russophobia is a first step towards genocide. You and I know very well what is happening in Donbass. It certainly looks like genocide, as you said.
In the meantime, Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky reaffirmed his readiness for direct talks with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. During his phone conversation with the U.S. President Joe Biden, the Ukraine head of state said his country's favor a diplomatic solution for the Donbas conflict, looking for platforms, mechanisms, and formats to unlock the peace process. Allocation, timing, and format to the dialogue is not announced yet. The statements, comments, and anti-Russian campaign promoted by Western powers and growing militarization of Ukraine by the North Atlantic Alliance. In this sense, Vladimir Putin expressed that NATO is carrying out a policy of clear confrontation with Russia. We have come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and you can also follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. From Telesur English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.